Hello, everyone. After welcoming 12,000 participants that have joined us from all over the world, we are truly happy to welcome you back on board to our second episode of the Blockchain Spotlight series, DeFi Beyond Crypto, with none other than our moderator of the day of honor, Mr. Laurent Marochini, Head of Innovation at Societe Generale. A little bit about our fantastic speakers' background. Ms. Petra Krizan is Managing Director of BlockHouse, Luxembourg, an entity boasting world-class scientists and engineers from Oxford and Ginseng in both collective trust and trusted computing. It has leading scientists and teams implementing products based on trusted execution environments, multi-party computation, blockchain, as well as a rapidly developing portfolio of IP in these areas. They provide solutions forming the core of banking, e-government, and identity systems with integrated regulation. Together with Marco Borkel, both are inviting you to their workshop right after the panel discussion, bringing DeFi to the mainstream. Ms. Alexia is Blockchain Adoption and Strategy Manager at Nomadic Labs, one of the largest research and development centers with the Tezos ecosystem. Based in Paris, Nomadic Labs is composed of more than 50 engineering researchers working on the development and evolution of the Tezos protocol. They help companies and institutions use the Tezos blockchain for their business needs, providing technical support in France, Luxembourg, and Belgium. Right after the panel discussion, you'll be able to enjoy a workshop on the topic with both Alexia and Louise. Miss Victoria Gago, joining straight out of Barcelona, is co-founder of the European Blockchain Convention, a twice-yearly convention focused on enterprise blockchain technology across multiple industries. She's the co-founder of the Accelerate Network, a non-for-profit organization for professional women in Barcelona, director of the master's degree in blockchain and business applications at the 3-Point School for Digital Business and the UBS Business School in Spain. She is also an ambassador for the Global Blockchain Business Council, helping to establish global blockchain standards. We also have the one and only Mr. Professor Dr. Philipp Sandner, head of the Frankfurt School of Blockchain Center at the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. His expertise includes blockchain technology in general, crypto assets such as Bitcoin and Ethereum, the digital programmable euro tokenization of assets and rights, and digital identity. Since 2017, he's a member of the FinTech Council of the Federal Ministry of Finance and was engaged in the EU Blockchain Observatory, established by the European Union. He co-founded the German blockchain, the International Token Standardization, and the Multi-Chain Asset Managers Association. Prof. Dr. Philipp Sandner was ranked as one of the top 30 economists by the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung in 2018 and 19, including to the top 40 under 40. On the moderator side, Mr. Laurent Marochini, Head of Innovation at Societe Generale Security Services in Luxembourg. Since 2018, Laurent is also Head of the Innovation Lab, Le Plateau, and Blockchain Leader for the group. Laurent is also co-chairman of the ALFI Working Group Blockchain and Crypto and member of the FinTech and Digital Executive Committee. He was awarded Top 4 FinTech Leader of the Year for the Luxembourg by Finance Awards in 2017, Top 21 RegTech Worldwide Leader by Medici in 2018, and twice awarded second worldwide Best Innovation Maker of Societe Generale 2015 and 2016. What an honor to have all of you with us today, and the screen is yours. Please, Laurent.
Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. So thank you very much for your introduction. What an energy, I would say, Anthony. So I'm very glad to be with you today. The topic of today's panel will be DeFi beyond crypto. So the blockchain and crypto world is moving very fast since 2 years. And I saw that the market capitalization of the crypto is 2.6 trillion of US dollar. Do you know that it is more than the capitalization of the French index CAC 40? So tokenization of financial assets and non-financial assets are everywhere. We have the NFT, and the word DeFi, which stands for Decentralized Finance, is growing up and seems to fulfill a lot of promises. As a broader definition, DeFi is a system where you can build, where you can access to financial products within the blockchain. So you don't need banks, no one takes the custody of your asset, and in a peer-to-peer. You know that means a lot for the economy. as a whole in terms of impact. So to discuss this topic, I have a wonderful and insightful bunch of speakers, as you have seen, from everywhere in Europe, from Spain, from Denmark, from Germany, from Luxembourg, and from Paris. So let's start with a quick roundtable. Anthony has made the presentation, but just 2 words about you and your current focus in this new world. Let's start with ladies, because we have three ladies. Let's start with Victoria.
Thank you very much, Laurent. Yes, so I'm Victoria Gago, based in Barcelona, originally from Copenhagen. I'm the co-founder of European Blockchain Convention and European Tech School, where we are both educating and doing a lot of content on DeFi, also crypto and blockchain in general. And besides that, I'm working on a project, it's very early stage, on a crypto collateralized type of loan for Bitcoin and Ethereum holders, actually founded by Blockchain Founders Group, the first early stage round, where Philipp is one of the partners. So this is my focus in the space, and happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Petra?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the short introduction. My name is Petra. I'm originally from Croatia and currently I'm based in Luxembourg, and I'm here representing the BlockHouse Technology Limited. And our main focus is solving problems regarding cybersecurity and complexity in the space of blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
Thank you so much. Alexia?
Thank you, Laurent. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Alexia Martinel. I am currently based in Paris, and I am Nomadic Labs Adoption Manager for the Benelux region. And Nomadic Labs, as was mentioned before, is a subsidiary of the Tezos Foundation, meaning that all the work we do is focused on the Tezos protocol, and most of the core Tezos team is actually held at Nomadic Labs. So pretty much Tezos focused. Again, pleasure to be here. Excited about the panel.
Thank you, Alexia. And finally, Philippe?
Yes, thanks very much for inviting me. Nice to be here. My name is Philipp. I'm working at the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. That's one of the 3 universities we have in Frankfurt. You might not know the Frankfurt School, but it's a tiny but very speedy, agile, and good university. Within Germany, we are belonging to the top 10 universities, and we have founded a blockchain center because we felt that blockchain is basically the key infrastructure for value transfers in the future. I actually think that there will be any value out there, be it real estate, bonds, stocks, money, crypto assets, and all kinds of things. All value will be stored on blockchain systems in, say, 10 years. It will take some while. And therefore, of course, on behalf of the university, we have to educate young people in the field such that they can find a job and don't become unemployed once the financial sector and the intermediaries are shrinking.
Thank you, Philippe. We will continue with you. Before going in details with the DeFi and to set up the scene, let's start with your observation. As an economist, as a crypto economist, what is your opinion regarding the maturity of the market? Can we tell now that we are near the plateau of productivity of Gartner for the crypto with a first level of maturity?
Yeah, that's a very good question. To be honest, I like the Gartner hype cycle, but you have to always be very skeptical, because if you are the hype cycle for Gartner is published once a year, and if you're looking at the last 5 editions of the Gartner hype cycles, then you see the blockchain bubble, like jumping around the circle basically randomly. So Gartner also has no clue where blockchain at the end of the day really is. And I think it is difficult because you cannot judge blockchain technology as a point, right? Blockchain technology is an infrastructural technology with all kinds of facets. We have Bitcoin, Ethereum, we have digital euro, we have identity management, NFT, DeFi, and all this stuff you all know this. And therefore, I think it's pretty clear that you cannot make like one point in this Gartner hype cycle, but rather it makes sense to dissect this and create multiple points for multiple sub-clusters or sub-technologies. And here I would say that we are basically quite much in the beginning with any type of asset out there. Bitcoin is probably the most advanced technology here, but even Bitcoin is still in the very early beginning. We have custody tech and exchanges out there. They are also quite nicely developed, but also they are still in some kind of beginning. And if you talk about DeFi and so on, we are also in the beginning, even though you are right, 2.6 trillion is indeed a significant number already, but I would still argue that we are in the beginning, and therefore I think we will go to 10 trillion in the next 24 months. It's a growing sector. We have a huge inflow of HR. That's basically people who are able to program all this. And therefore, I think we are in constant growth mode, and we will be in constant growth mode for the next years. It will be absolutely exciting over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I'm very, very excited.
So if you want to work in the crypto ecosystem, in the blockchain ecosystem, please stay tuned. And if the market is going to 10 trillion, so I'm going to be, I will keep all the Bitcoins and Ether that we can have in the portfolio. So ladies, do you have any reactions to Philippe? What's your opinion to his observation?
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to add one point. So basically, I think we can see it as two different waves. So the first wave, when it comes to the crypto space, started obviously with the introduction of Bitcoin in 2009. And well, the wave is still continuing. It's very much focused on new asset classes, right? So we have Bitcoin, Ethers, all types of cryptocurrencies. We have tokenization of physical assets, tokenization of digital assets, NFTs, and so on. So it's very much focused on assets. And I think the new wave is very much focused on services. And that's where DeFi comes into the picture. Because now it's all about moving around all these assets, doing all types of transactions, borrowing, lending, and so on. So like the first wave, we're still in the first wave. It's focused on assets, new asset classes, but parallel, we now have a new wave, which is focused on services, which is very exciting, very, very early stage. Also, as Philipp said, obviously, when it comes to crypto and blockchain in general, it's day one, but even for DeFi, it's even more day one. I mean, we have very few users now in the DeFi space, at least when it comes to crypto. I saw a recent study from finder.com where it was stating that in Germany, 9% of the Germans have crypto in their portfolios. And in Spain, for example, it was 12%. And then when it comes to DeFi, I think we have around 2 million users. But obviously, those 2 million users are not active at all. So it's really, really early stage. I think probably DeFi is like going back to crypto in the 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's where we are in DeFi.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
If I may jump in, so I agree mostly what was said by Philipp and Victoria. I think that what is important to explain to perhaps the share of the audience that's not a crypto native audience is that it's important to differentiate in between the different generations that we had in the crypto world. So first of all, we had Bitcoin, first generation, no smart contracts. We had Ethereum coming later on in 2015, bringing the smart contracts innovation which allowed the DeFi and other worlds to come around. And then we had other, crypto ecosystems such as Tezos and others, third generation, which wanted to solve the so-called blockchain trilemma that wasn't so far tackled by Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I think that it's also important to understand that within the blockchain world itself, we can see what we call different verticals. So DeFi being one of the blockchain verticals, we also have self-sovereign identity, for example. We also see NFTs coming around. So as Philipp mentioned, it's really difficult to see where we are at this point with DeFi and blockchain, just because the blockchain ecosystem as a whole, because of the different verticals kind of evolving at different paces, evolves at a very erratic pace. And when it comes to DeFi, so, as we know, Ethereum with its smart contracts since 2014 was kind of the precursor for all this innovation. which was later on followed by third generation crypto related projects, which all came with a different set of characteristics when it came with TPS. So, throughput, for example, block size, different sort of advantages, et cetera. All that meaning that I think that within the course of some blockchain spaces, for example, Ethereum, DeFi might be more advanced, perhaps more mature than in other ecosystems, just because Ethereum being older than other ecosystems, if we compare with Solana or Tezos, for example, in which the solutions themselves are going to be designed in very different ways. At least that's my take on it.
Thank you, Alexia. Maybe we can jump to the DeFi right now. So DeFi and Financial Institution. So I'm part of Société Générale Group. If you have seen the press at the end of September, our subsidiary Société Générale Forge, so they have already tokenized a lot of financial assets, bonds, certificate products, and they have taken one bond as a collateral for the protocol DAO Maker. So this is definitely a kind of bridge between the world of the traditional financial institution, the legal world, and the world of the decentralized finance. So we have done it end of September. So it is a proposition of collaboration to the protocol of DAO Maker. So my question is, how traditional actors will interact with this new world? And I have a first question for Victoria. Do you believe there is a place for the financial industry, and where do you believe it makes sense? Because I have heard that you have some initiative regarding the collateral. Is it something that is very important for the bank? Do you think there is a place for the banks in this world?
Yes, well, I mean, we can be very extreme here and say that the whole financial industry is going to be completely removed by introducing DeFi. But I mean, thinking a little bit more logically about it, I do think that the banks will have a role. So they are getting slowly into crypto. Some banks, at least in Europe, slowly, right? Very slowly. For example, BBVA recently launched their trading services, crypto trading services for high net worth individuals in Switzerland. But when it comes to DeFi, I do see that the banks are never going to be tech players. I mean, maybe some of them consider themselves as tech players, or at least trying to become tech players. But I do see that they will be using the DeFi infrastructure in the future. So how, I mean, the role as traditional banking players in DeFi, I do see that can come from different aspects. So obviously, right now, when it comes to DeFi, you can do all types of saving activities, trading activities. You can do lending and borrowing, all traditional financial services. So the role of the banks would be, I think, through second layer services. So basically, I mean, right now the whole DeFi space is very siloed. So we have all type of services in different platforms. So they could be having a role as an aggregator. So basically providing a service that's linked to the whole infrastructure of DeFi, where you then as customer could get access to different kind of loans via DeFi. But this layer of technology, I don't think that the banks will be developing those services. It would be either acquiring a player in the space or using some white label brands out there. So basically providing the services, but connecting to the DeFi space. Yeah. I also do see that customer service is very important. End of the day, as we also mentioned before, it's really, really early stage in the DeFi space. There is no way you can call anyone and get help. And if we want something to get to mass adoption, we need customer service. We need help. I mean, even if you think of like Coinbase and some of these crypto exchanges, they do have customer service, but it's actually quite horrible. It's all by email, and sometimes you don't even know how to reach to them and who to write to and how. So again, the banks could provide a good service here. And I also think another very important aspect for adoption is the whole KYC identity aspect, right? So we do need we do need to figure out a bit where does the money come from, right? That it's not that we don't have any money laundering involved. So again, a service related to KYC identity, I also think the banks can be involved here. Mm-hmm. Again, not that the banks will develop these KYC services, but again, using some third party players or acquiring players in the space. So it's kind of like providing services through aggregators, right? Customer service, and then the KYC identity aspect.
So we need to create a kind of central exchange, so a SEX into a DEX.
Yeah,
I would say. So
exactly.
A new layer. Yeah, I fully understand. For Philippe, I have a question. So do you have any reaction regarding the place of the financial industry within the DeFi? And I have another question for you. Do you believe that the DeFi is like ICO, kind of a bubble effect?
That's a good question. So I think we do need banks, right? The core, one of the core functions of a bank is to store our money, or to put it differently, to store money on behalf of others, right? So in case I want to store my own money, I can do this with the peer-to-peer approach of crypto assets. Then I don't need a bank, right? But in case I would like to ask somebody else to store my money, then typically you need a bank. You also need a bank for anti-money laundering analysis. You also need this for monitoring people for tax evasion and so on. So there will always be a need for banks on behalf of the government. So therefore we will always have banks, right? That's my opinion. But still, I think there are rooms where banks might not necessarily be needed anymore. We see this, for example, in El Salvador with Bitcoin on the rise over there, where now the banking is simply being done by some kind of very lean payment app or wallet app, right? Replacing the function of banks, right? So the function of banks will stay there and is needed, and regulation is also there and will be needed. But I would doubt that those banks which we are knowing today are still existing in 10 years, right? I hope you get this point. I would like to abstract the names of the banks which we already know today away from the function of banks. The function is needed, the role of banks is needed because of various reasons, but the names which we now know today as banks, to some degree, I would say that they will go away. In Germany, we had brands like Grundig, for example, or AEG. These have been huge brands, and all these brands have faded away because they haven't kept up with the challenge of electronics. So this market moved to Panasonic and then later on to Samsung and so on. And this will also happen to banks unless they are digital and trying their very best to understand blockchain technology. And for some banks, we can see in Europe, but also elsewhere, that banks are trying to understand this technology and are trying to adopt it. But there are also banks who are still rejecting this technology, who still think that it's going away at some point of time. And those banks, in my mind, they will not survive, right? You have to keep up with the technology. You have to stay up to date here. In case you do it, in case you are confronting yourself with this technology, then there is room for you in the future. In case you're trying to stay like you have been in the last couple of years and decades, then in my mind, it's like in other industries, then there will no justification for such banks in the future, right? I think that's how it's gonna turn out. So any bank can be digitally transformed to play a role in the future, but not any bank will be required in the future.
Very, very good. Very good conclusion. So I'm happy to be in a bank that is believing to the world of blockchain. Now, Alexia, from a technology perspective, so Ethereum is definitely leading the pace in the world of decentralized finance. Do you see any interesting use cases that you manage with your technology? Tezos is believing to the DeFi. I would like to know more.
Absolutely, no. So as we all know, Ethereum came 4 years before Tezos. And Ethereum also had a very organic positioning as a blockchain ecosystem. Tezos, from its very early beginnings, positioned itself as the public infrastructure for corporates. So what we saw very early on in Tezos was an equilibrium that was found in between the organic solutions that were being developed. And by organic, I really mean DeFi protocols, because I don't think there's a consensus on what DeFi is. For example, when we talk about the centralized exchange, such as Coinbase, is this really DeFi? When we talk about solutions that are based on custodianship, is this DeFi? You know, so I think that in the blockchain world, when we talk about DeFi, we mean decentralized exchanges, we mean IDO platforms, we mean automated market makers, farming tools, etc., which can be seen as very anarcho-capitalistic kind of tools. But sorry, to get back to Tezos. So from an organic perspective, we have all these DeFi protocols and tools that are existing that have been launched by entrepreneurs, by building teams. So again, we have a whole set of decentralized exchanges, IDO platforms, so initial DEX offerings. We have automated market makers, we have farming tools, we have liquidity protocols, non-custodial wallets, etc., etc. And what is interesting is that on the other side, we took a little bit more that institutional / corporate approach, because we saw that eventually a blockchain ecosystem can only survive if it finds that equilibrium, if it tries to build an ecosystem that is pertinent. And so on this side of things, we have had a set of projects such as the LUG, which you might have heard of, which is the first French Europex stablecoin. So if you type on your browser EURL, you'll be able to find this Europex stablecoin, which means a great deal for European citizens, because so far we have been subjected to only dollar-pegged stablecoins, which is a pain when you interact with DeFi tools. So on one hand, we had stablecoins with the LUG. Sorry, you have questions, Laurent?
No, I was telling that in terms of stablecoin, I believe that 95% of the stablecoins, they are pegged by US dollar. So
yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you are European, if you want to go to the DeFi with an European stablecoin, you will have the risk of change in US dollar. So
absolutely.
Can I say something here? Because at the end of the day, the euro is showing a significant inflation, and the US dollar is showing a significant inflation. So at the end of the day, concerning risk, it doesn't matter whether you hold the euro or the US dollar. At the end of the day, both currencies will inflate. And there is one very important point, in my personal opinion: we will never have a euro stable coin in Europe, because from the crypto market, there is no demand for it, because the US dollar stable coins, they are delivering what is basically needed. That's a stable asset, right? And very importantly, we have negative interest rates in Europe here, provided by the ECB. And on the same side, we have the MiCA regulation coming up with the so-called e-money tokens, and e-money is not interest bearing. So those people who want to try to issue a euro stablecoin, they have to pay negative interest rates to the ECB, but they cannot forward it to the customer. So it's not interest bearing. So in case you would like to operate a euro stablecoin, then you are operating at a loss as of day one. And the more important you get, the larger you get, the more successful you get, the bigger is your loss. So tell me one company in Europe who wants to do this business.
Absolutely. So I think you're totally right from an economic perspective, but I think the matter is that of sovereignty. And I think that perhaps regulation will evolve when it will understand that, we're talking about a different thing here. But so just to finish up, so stablecoins on one hand, and we've also had a lot of payment and infrastructure projects for corporations, and also a lot of cases of tokenization. So tokenization being the digital representation of an asset in the real estate world, with financial projects, with Société Générale, and in the case of other legal entities. Thank you, Philipp, for your intervention. That was extremely pertinent.
Thanks to you, Petra. I have a question for you. Do you see specific obstacles for DeFi and financial institution, or from a technology perspective?
Okay, so there are some challenges we have to overcome if we'd like to see a mass adoption of DeFi, especially related to institutional adoption of DeFi. As a first, I can identify security of DeFi because DeFi is based on smart contracts and we need proper smart contract verifications. We also need a reliable infrastructure on which DeFi can run. We also need a way to have a secure way of signing transactions on DeFi. And what's else important, the complexity of DeFi is huge. And dealing with the operations in DeFi as interacting with smart contracts, it tends to get really, really complicated. And from my perspective, we also have to think how to simplify those operations for institutional investors, for asset managers, and for people who are interested to implement DeFi as a technology to, let's say, simplify their own processes in their enterprises.
Very, very, very interesting. So what needs to be solved to transfer challenges in opportunities? So I believe that if we want to have the adoption, we need to solve all the challenges. So my question is, as all technology, so adoption is key to survive. To be adopted, you need to have all the magical ingredients, like the liquidity, like the technology, the smart contract, and so on and so on. My question, so is all for you. What do you consider as the three main challenges for DeFi to be adopted? So for all of you who want to start?
I can start.
Complexity, I understand.
Yeah,
complexity.
So we have a regulation, first and foremost, in my opinion, because the asset is not, if the asset is not regulated, then the institutional investors won't adopt it because of the problems with regulations and the reports and so on and so on. The second problem is security, of course, because people do not trust into that technology if it's not proven to be reliable, which we all know it has been a problem for, some smart contract providers, for example, Polynetwork hack, which happened this year in August, because the hacker exploited the cryptography policy in the protocol, and he managed to steal all the funds in the contract. The second thing is also complexity, which I briefly described in my previous answer. And the complexity of the operations regarding DeFi needs to be simplified in order to bring DeFi to the mainstream. Thank you for the question. It was a great question.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So complexity, regulation, and the last one, security. Okay, Victoria?
Yes, I agree with all of them, but I would add a few other points. So I think another issue is, as I also mentioned before, that the whole DeFi space is very siloed, right? So we have a lot of services and all spread out on different platforms. We have seen a few aggregators so far, but very few. So this is a bit like the early days in the internet, right? So you had a lot of if you wanted to buy some tickets, flight tickets, you would have to go to one specific website, and then later on you got Skyscanner and all these different providers aggregating, right, everything. So, I mean, we need to aggregate the different services. It needs to be easy to figure out, okay, where can I get the best yield, right? What are the fees on the different platforms, or at least also connected to this siloed space, and the DeFi space is also like the transaction fees. So 90% of all transactions contracts are run on Ethereum, and as you know, probably the gas fee on Ethereum is often very high. So this is not very user friendly, right?
Into Tezos. Don't check it, sorry.
Yeah, for example. So, but again, at least using also aggregators, this is also a way of being able to reduce a bit the fees. But so yes, as I said, we need aggregators. Another issue is the transaction fees. And then also, as I mentioned before, very important is also the whole aspect of KYC identity. So far, you are connecting with your MetaMask wallet often, and which is not linked to anything. I mean, it's not linked to my name, Victoria Gago. Nobody knows that it's coming from my side. So at least if we want mass adoption, if we want institutional players to get into the space, we need to have some proper services of KYC identity. I know Fireblocks is introducing something, or has introduced something. this way, obviously, we can get institutional players on board, because if not, if there is no KYC process, no identity process, yeah, this is just going to stay for retail players.
Philippe?
Well, I think most of the points have already been said. Don't want to repeat things. I think it was very, very, very good points. Maybe one point, in case it would be possible to leverage banks and connect them to DeFi, then in my mind, this is the most important point, because then you could also have people who have no clue about the technology being customers at banks, and the bank as a trusted party with regulation and so on is doing all the other technical complex stuff in the background, right? I think this would be the breakthrough, and there are already a couple of companies who are starting to do this, some of them for retail, some of them for institutionals, and I think this will be interesting. For example, in Germany, we have one company now which is starting. They are simply providing some kind of bank account with an interest rate of 3 or 4%, and that's the product offer, full stop. And in the background, they are taking the money and doing all kinds of crazy DeFi stuff to basically deliver these 3 or 4% of interest rate. So they are abstracting this complexity away from the customer, and the customer just sees a bank account as always with an interest rate. The solutions like this, in case they are working and in case they are scaling, in my mind, could be very interesting for adoption of the masses.
Okay, Alexia, so you will be the last one, because in 1 minute you are going to run out of the time. By the way, I just received a private message just to see how you are going to compete to Ethereum, and what would be a unique selling proposition that you can have compared to Ethereum in the context of DeFi. Is it part of your 3 main challenges? Maybe, I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay, so just to answer on the first question and to jump on what Philippe was saying, I think this is a really good point indeed. I think the way in which we see banks, the role of banks within, the financial ecosystem in blockchain, I don't know if we call it DeFi, banks will be the trust layer in between, retail investors and the crazy DeFi world. We are still lacking regulation in the DeFi world, as in DeFi world, and banks could indeed play this role of, we'll connect with KYC solutions, we will take care of the trust behind these KYCs, and we will take all the difficult decisions that are to be taken whenever you interact with DeFi solutions, essentially. So totally agree with this. When it comes to the question that you asked, Laurent, I think, and that relates to the question that was asked in regards to Tezos, from a tech perspective, we indeed, for DeFi solution, need fast settlement, fast throughput. The notion of block finality, for example, is very important. The notion of TPS is extremely important. The consensus algorithm that you use also plays a big role. You need strong security and governance. And in all these aspects, for example, if we talk about security and governance, and that answers the last question, Tezos has what we call on-chain governance. On-chain governance allows us to make our protocol evolve without having to run a hard fork. And because of this, we have the ability to constantly evolve. So every 3 months, we bring some new innovation. So for example, lately, we've increased our TPS and we have divided our transaction fees, which is something that was brought on by Victoria, and which is something that we are very wary of when it comes to DeFi, NFTs, and allowing your ecosystem to grow. So yeah, essentially through on-chain governance, we have this ability to evolve seamlessly and to add and bring innovation to our network.
Thank you so much. I see that we are just on time. I would like to thank you again for this discussion. It was really insightful. As a kind of conclusion, I would say that DeFi is here. It's like innovation. It's here to stay. It's like crypto. It's also here to stay. We still have a lot of challenges in the future. There is indeed a place for the financial institution, but we need also to change in the traditional world to be part of the future. So for me, it was a kind of a very quick conclusion, but now I can give the floor to Anthony for the workshops.
Yes, of
Thank you
course.
very much, and have a good day for all of you.
aim to classify tokens for taxation purposes. What was also mentioned during the panel, DeFi systems today also lack KYC procedures and identities, making such systems hard to recognize by regulators, providing potential for financial crimes such as money laundering and other illicit activities. The key aspect of bringing DeFi to the mainstream and mainstream usage is also the trust in the system. From the other perspective, we have traditional financial institutions like banks, which have centuries behind them, making services trustworthy and building trust with their customers. Also, they have proven mechanisms of protection of customer assets, as well as long tradition of operating. While DeFi systems offer more capabilities and flexibility, it's important to establish trust in DeFi to bring them to the mainstream, as making them as secure as possible in all the aspects. By all the aspects, I mean contract vulnerabilities, transaction signing, infrastructure reliability as well, while also respecting privacy, simplifying existing processes when trying to interact with DeFi technology. The second component of trust also comes from getting regulatory approval and from getting institutional investors on board. Those two things are actually interconnected. If we have a regulatory approval, it's really likely to see institutional investors on board. Embracing regulation and having institutional investors in the DeFi, it gives it legitimacy. So how can we increase the trust in DeFi? To be compliant and to get institutional investors on board, we need a couple of things listed here on the slide. The first one of them, of course, security things, verification of contracts and reliable infrastructure, and also custody of wallet and wallet keys and some advanced features as wallet recovery. We also need transparent asset tracking, regulatory friendly systems, technical systems, low complexity for the asset managers, for banks, and low complexity for the end user as well. We also need better performance and, most importantly, lower costs. So how to properly build a system for increasing trust in DeFi and simplifying DeFi operations to alternative fund managers or banks? How did we in TBTL approach to tackle this challenge? Let's take a look on it from broader perspective in two aspects. First aspect is by combining proper technology, using trusted hardware such as Intel SGX or AMD SCV, trustless secure distributed computing, and state-of-the-art system hardening for building custody for private keys or digital wallets. Using proper combination of technology enables secured and simplified asset tracking for existing DeFi providers, such as Aave or Compound, for products as lending, staking, or swapping. And by enabling those proper asset tracking for existing DeFi providers, as a result, we get reporting, which then opens the door for embedding regulatory aspects, such as taxation, and also give compliance for future regulation. What features does TBTL offer and which problems do we solve? We've solved the challenge of managing wallets by secure custody and wallet recovery using trusted hardware and implementing multi-signatures and multi-party key computation, what offers an additional layer of security. We've dealt with the possibility of human errors when interacting with contracts with frictionless transfers, as the DeFi providers are already integrated in the platform, offering user-friendly interacting with different DeFi products. Also, with atomic user or transaction policies in large systems, it's easy to track and control who is authorized to sign which transfer, which also reduces the risks and the complexity of managing transactions. With transparent instruments tracking, it's easy to have control over generated income and create profit and loss statements, and for each transaction, it's required to have a KYC.
If we remember from the previous slide, we've dealt with most of the challenges by providing integrative solution and simplifying existing operations, while technology takes over complex processes and safekeeping keys, wallets, accessing multiple DeFi providers, and also offers a framework for embedding the regulation.
So we've talked about challenges, we've successfully addressed them, but let's add another level of abstraction on top of it. Now, when we have secured, convenient, and regulatory-friendly system, what else we could do? By integrating access to different DeFi providers in one place, we get an opportunity to create new financial instruments, derivatives. By having access to lending, staking, swapping, there exists the possibility of creating another level of abstraction on top of it, such as custom contracts, derivatives, or more broadly, synthetics, or new funds, automatic asset management, risk management, such as reinsurance, or maybe even new insurance products. And what about trading? Also, by integrating access to different DeFi providers in one place, that also offers an opportunity to do automated contracts, derivatives trading, and maybe even arbitrage. Actually, the possibilities of adding levels of abstraction to what DeFi products offer are endless once you have convenient, reliable, and secured system to manage everyday operations with DeFi. With this sentence, we are closing our presentation, and the floor is yours if you would like to ask some questions.
Hello, everyone. You can all unmute yourself, huh? Augusto, please ask your question.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation, first of all.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, it was really, really interesting and complete. I'm really interested in how do you do an IDO on blockchain, on Ethereum, and what's happened, because from what I understood, you don't have KYC.
I think it was in completely different directions. While you have DeFi,
Yes.
Standard DeFi providers do not give you an opportunity to have KYC because everything is done by MetaMask or some other kind of wallet, where your wallet is actually not linked to your identity. And to existing DeFi providers, there's no, let's say, there's no way that they can do KYC for you. That's why we are jumping in the game, because if you have the wallets at our side, we also can do KYC for you. We also can link your digital or physical identity to your wallet, and then it's easier to do the compliance. And also that offers the whole road open for the regulatory aspects in DeFi systems. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I think yes. So a DAO, for example, would come on your website or would have your app, and then they can be able to launch an IDO with the KYC
okay, so the whole idea behind the platform we offer and the solutions we are developing is to give institutions the access to cryptocurrency markets and to also DeFi. And in your story, some kind of, let's say, bank or asset management company, which will give you DeFi services, would have to integrate with us, because then the technology solves all the problems for them, like how to embed regulation, how to do identity tracking, how to do KYC, how to do KYT, how to be compliant with AML and GDPR as well, and all of those things.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking the question. Do we have any other questions maybe? We still have 10 minutes left, so
in terms of development. As you can see here, we have an increasing amount of contract calls, which is a really good point. And at the same time, the cost of using the blockchain has been decreasing, which facilitates a lot of operation related to DeFi and the smart contract usage. The ecosystem is fairly developed. As you can see on this map, we've been all around the world with 18 teams of development and many other projects, which we will be discussing later on. We will see some interesting use case around DeFi and tokenization. So we have different solutions, especially in DeFi, tokenization, and NFT, and we will finally discuss the baking, the corporate baking. So as you can see here, the ecosystem is fairly developed in the DeFi space. We have wallets, stablecoins, and synthetic assets, automated market makers, as well as Oracle, insurance protocols, DEXs and IDOs, some mixers and bridges, and most importantly, yield farming and liquidity pools. We've had some interesting experiments with the Banque de France. They are essentially conducting an experiment with blockchain and CBDC as a way to settle payment in central currency, payment against digital currency and against some of the digital assets such as tokenized real estate, tokenized structured products, or synthetics. We also have the LUT program that was introduced by Alexia during the talk. So it was a project that was made with Casino, which is a mass market retailer based in France, a rather well-known one. And the aim of this project was to create a stablecoin that is pegged one-to-one to the euro as a way to improve the customer's experience of Casino. So basically, they created a settlement coin, and this settlement coin could be used as loyalty points as well, as a way to reward customers. MoneyTrack is another interesting solution we have on the Tezos ecosystem. It's basically a platform for directed money, which is relying on a decentralized application. And the aim here is to control the directed payment flows for companies to operate in a more safe manner. In addition to this, we also had an interesting project with the French Army and the Gendarmerie Nationale, which is an arm of the French Army. And the aim of this project was to implement and validate judicial expenses on the Tezos blockchain as a way to secure and have a good traceability of what was being spent during those judicial processes. So it was the first governmental use of Tezos. In terms of tokenization, for those who don't know what tokenization is, it's basically taking a real world asset and representing it in a token, which can be exchanged in a peer-to-peer way, or that could be exchanged on a centralized exchange. So here you can see a few of our additional project we've had on the Tezos blockchain, and we'll dig into some other interesting use case right after that. So this one that was created by Elevated Britain is about tokenizing real estate in its entirety. So in order to do that, they created an exchange that is Tezos based, which is called ERX, and it became the first Thailand exchange for the digitalized real estate in Thailand. So here the aim is to digitalize and tokenize entire real estate slots and sell them on organized markets. What is interesting with tokenization is that you can basically decide to tokenize only a portion of a real estate piece. So that will be the case for the St. Regis auto that decided to only tokenize 19% of their ownership and structure. So that will be similar to tokenize only a part of your company and be able to exchange it. So if you want to buy or exchange with tokenized real estate token, you can do it on a digital security platform that is called T0. We've also had an interesting tokenization program with Logical Pictures, which is a production company in the audiovisual and entertainment industry. And they've decided to launch an alternative investment fund amounting for 100 million with let's say a tokenized based on double-digit asset model. So you would have a security token that will represent the exposition to the investment decision. So that will be similar to a stock in the way that it would grant you a voting power. And alongside that, you will have a utility token that will be issued at the same time. So this will grant you bonuses, goodies, and some privileges that you would obtain by being a bearer of this said token. In the tokenization space, you also have something that is related to NFTs, so non-fungible tokens for those who don't know. It's a part of the tokenization principle, even though right now it's mostly focused on the art world and collectibles, but it can be extended further. Here you can see some of our solutions. So we have quite a bunch of different NFT platforms, as you can see here on the screen, and some markets as well as wallets that are specifically designed to hold NFTs because they obey different standards as other tokens. Here you can see additional collectibles, games, and digital fandom we've had on the Tezos blockchain. Pixel POTUS for one of the most known, and the Tezos, which was one of the largest and first collection that was created on the Tezos ecosystem. For more corporate introduction, we have Red Bull. We decided to create and implement an NFT-based fan experience. So the team wanted to offer additional and exclusive collectible for their fans. So they decided to go with the Tezos blockchain to do this. One of which is basically specialized in the music industry. It's an NFT platform that was designed for music lovers and more precisely for musicians and producers. So the company has been quite well growing at a quite fast pace. They raised 63 million from a seed round, and they've chosen Tezos as a technical partner. And they're well known because they've had artists with a big notoriety, such as Whitney Houston or Doja Cat. And a few months ago, it was something quite big. A quick slide regarding regulations. We've had some discussion earlier about that. So why are regulations that important for the tokenization and the DeFi space? Basically, without regulation, banks and institutional players won't be able to develop within the space because they would be facing some rather important points of friction, especially regarding the identification of the users. Because they want to avoid risk related to anti-money laundering, tax evasion, fraud, and terrorism financing. So as guidelines, we already have some regulation within the market, especially the AMRD and the CFT and KYC, but they're not yet implemented in the DeFi space because of technological limitation and some philosophical aspect that might be existing in the DeFi space. In Europe, we have had the MiCA, which is a crypto asset regulation that wanted to streamline the DLT and the virtual asset regulation in Europe, but is yet to be properly implemented and used in its entirety. So we are still waiting for some guidelines and more important regulation within the space. There is also the EMD2, which gives some definition of e-money. But in order to have a better understanding, we need to have a proper qualification of what crypto assets are. Are they commodities, securities? So the workspace is basically waiting for regulators such as the SEC to give guidelines regarding the classification of all those different tokens and the application they can have. So regarding Tezos, we can consider it to be a security rather than a commodity. And to give you an example, Bitcoin might be more related to a commodity, but not falling into the SEC jurisdiction. So those are interesting points to be taken into consideration before jumping into DeFi. Finally, we have the corporate baking, which is basically the same thing as mining Bitcoin, but in lieu of relying on proof of work consensus mechanism, it's going to be relying on liquid proof of stake, which is the consensus used by Tezos. And baking offers a rather interesting feature, as the company that chose to become a corporate baker is going to be able to validate operation and strengthen the ecosystem of Tezos. So the incentive are generally going to be around earning a reward, which could be interesting if you decide to launch your infrastructure or IT project on the Tezos blockchain, because you can potentially self-finance this said operation. When validating operation transaction within your company or with your shareholders, you also benefit from a zero-fee transaction because you will be baking your own block, so you can put your transaction within this block, and as a result, you won't have to pay anything. Another rather interesting point, especially for institution, is the predictable baking, which allows you to know which baker is going to be validating your transaction. So let's say you're a bank and you have to avoid regulatory issues with a country that might be under an embargo. So as a result, you will be able to say, I do not want to to have my transaction validated by this structure or company because they're located in a country under an embargo, and that will be bad for corporate image or compliance with regulatory bodies. And one of the final and most interesting point is the ability to participate on the on-chain governance, and this will grant you some rights in the way that the Tezos ecosystem and the consensus is evolving. So it's literally a right to take a decision alongside other players.
Luis, maybe let's take a couple of questions. We have Paul Villius that has two questions that he would like to ask from the TSSF. Please, Mr. Villius, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much for this opportunity just to ask. I had a couple of questions which I posted in the chat and which are both linked to the question of how interoperable would you say that the Tezos ecosystem is with other ecosystems in the space. So I took the example of, for example, will there be an easy way to transfer to bridge assets from the Ethereum network to the Tezos network? That would be one question, because I think this is being developed on other protocols. And the second question, which I'm not so sure, is it maybe more of a coding question? I'm not sure, like, to what extent are dApps or decentralized apps developed on other ecosystems by other developers, like, portable to Tezos?
Okay,
Louis,
so
I'll take the question. Oh, sorry. I'll take the
Okay.
questions. You can add more if you want. Just to get back to your first question, Paul, and they're both like really relevant. The first thing to know, I think, is some background history of Tezos. As you know, because it came out after Ethereum, and because of the lag that we had from an organic perspective, the focus of Arthur Breitman historically, which is our founder, wanted, well, his focus first was to reinforce the DeFi ecosystem on Tezos. And as such, he thought that it might not be relevant in the first place to focus on interoperability. However, this thinking or this thought is evolving. We have a wrapper that already exists on Tezos that you can check. It's developed by Bender Labs. It's the Bender Labs wrap, which allows you to wrap ERC20 and ERC 721 tokens from Ethereum to Tezos today. In terms of bridges, as per the bridge, there are no existing bridges. If we talk about compilers, we do not have compilers that would allow a level of integration of Ethereum-based apps to Tezos. However, when it comes to what type of development you can do on Tezos, you do not necessarily need to develop everything in Nicholson. We have different languages such as SmartPy, Lego, and Archetype, which all three compile to Nicholson. We are exploring ways of facilitating the notion of interoperability on Tezos. We are thinking of first moving towards the Cosmos ecosystem first. And then we will see how everything moves on in regards to Ethereum. Does this answer your questions?
Perfectly, yes, thank you.
Super.
Any other questions? Well, if there's no questions, maybe we can keep on with the presentation. If you're interested by the Tezos ecosystem and would like to participate, how can you do this? So you can either launch a project on Tezos. So if you are a corporation, you can develop an open source project and receive grants from the Tezos Foundation. You can as well become a baker. So a baker could be an individual that would be buying XTZ token and then launch his operation. But as a firm, you could, or an institution, you can become a corporate baker and benefit the advantages that were cited before. You can also participate in hackathons and the incubation programs, basically. So thank you very much for your time and attention. And if you have any other question regarding DeFi regulation or how can institution use DeFi systems, I'll be glad to take them.
Anyone has a question to Louis or to Alexia? Anyone has a question to Louis or to Alexia? Please, Garo of Sood, please unmute yourself. We still have some time.
Hi, just got a question around how staking is going to affect the creation of securities on blockchain. And, I don't know a lot about this area. So looking to be educated by these very smart people. Thanks.
Hey, Gaurav. It's great to see you here. Okay, so I'll read the question out loud. Louis, if you want to take the lead on it, you can, otherwise I'll do. So the question is, how will staking change crypto and creation of securities on blockchain?
Well, it really depends. So basically, when you stake, depends on the protocol you are and the infrastructure you are using, but sometimes, well, most of the time, you have a limit of the total supply. So you're going to be able to stake and create securities within the scope of that blockchain. So let's say a blockchain has 100,000 tokens in terms of max supply. Once all those tokens are being minted or created, you won't have additional supply unless the protocol is being changed by voting or by soft or hard fork. If this answers your question.
I guess where I'm going with that question is, can you use it as an interest rate bearing asset, like a 10-year bond, and therefore try to either it could either be used by a bank to offer a new security, or it could be used by an exchange to create a way of monetizing, certain new markets, and that's kind of where I'm going with the question.
Okay, yes, definitely. So basically, what they could do is act as an intermediary within all the protocols in existence and capital markets. So they would make the connection between people in need of money, so and people with excess liquidity, and they could close the gap between those two entities, demand. And essentially, the aim would be to facilitate money flows between ends to drive growth for capital market and the economy. So yes, they could definitely use tokens and the tokenization aspect for that purpose.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
And the last question. No one has a question anymore? Last chance. Very good. Louis, where can our audience reach out to you the best? To you and to Alexia, please. Louis, please.
LinkedIn. That's perfect way. Or Twitter, I think, for Louis.
Very good, very good. Anyway, it's been a pleasure to have you with us, Alexia and Louis. I see that Laurent is still on the call with us, so I want to thank all of you for having been with us for today's session, all the remaining participants. We have the road to NFT confirmed in about 2 weeks' time. We have the CEO of the list. We have the head of global blockchain initiatives from Worldline. A gentleman that recently spoke at the Federal Reserve Bank who's going to be on the panel as well. So a stellar lineup, and I would like you to be there as well. In about 2 weeks' time, you'll get more information about it on Monday. It's been a pleasure to have you with us, and we see each other on the next occasion. Thank you very much, Alexia and Louis. Once again, Laurent, thank you, and have a fantastic weekend. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for being here.